Welcome to First Parish in Needham, a Unitarian Universalist congregation of humanists, theists, atheists, agnostics, seekers, and interfaith families. I am Kevin McCormick, and my wife Jane McKean and I have been coming to First Parish for about 7 years. You can learn more about all that's happening at First Parish by going to our website, uneedham.org, and signing for our weekly email newsletter, or by following us on social media. Our order of service is online too, at the QR code in your pews and at the website, uneedham.updates.church. Please speak with our ushers, greeters, and Zoom hosts if you have questions or accessibility needs. At First Parish, we covenant to live out our shared values of the inherent worth and dignity of every person, respecting the earth and co-creating beloved community. Whoever you are, whoever you love, whatever your background or identity, whatever your age or stage, whether you walked in or rolled in, and wherever you're participating from, you are welcome here. On behalf of the entire Pledge Drive team of myself, David Menard, and Bob DeNoble, I'd like to talk about the pledge. We currently have a pledge total of around $305,000, and we're extremely grateful for this. Unfortunately, that total is 90% of what we need to fully fund the budget. Last year, at our annual meeting, we set up a 3-year plan to take limited funds from our endowment to get us back on our financial feet. Next year, fiscal 25, that's the second year of the plan, we'll be taking the agreed funds from the endowment. But currently, that will still be short, and we'll have to dip into reserves and emergency funds to cover the budget. To avoid that, we need additional pledging. So that's why you're asking for increases in your pledges. As we have announced, a generous household has agreed to match any increase up to $5,000. So whatever you increase will be doubled. A few households have already taken advantage of this match, and we thank each of you very much. I know it may be hard to look at an increase after making your pledge decision. And I know that this congregation is made up of individuals with different commitments, different resources, and different priorities. So for those of you who are at your pledge limit for whatever reason, we understand and are grateful for what you have pledged. But for others, we're asking that you add something to your initial pledge, just for this coming year. If a big enough number of the congregation adds just $50, it will really help. It's really easy to do. Just email Susanna or any of the pledge team, myself, David, or Bob, with your increase. This may be difficult financial news, but I feel confident about First Parish. Every week, I talk to different people, and I realize what a vibrant and thriving community this is. And we are growing. At least 10 new households have become involved in First Parish, and many of them have shown their commitment to this community by pledging. The pledge team thanks all of you for your pledges that you have made. And thanks in advance for those of you who can increase their pledge. Welcome again to everyone here in the building and online. We're so glad you're here.
Our chalice lighting is called Lighting in Times of Conflict, and it's written by Amy Russell, and it's been adapted. You who feel your heart is breaking, come in.
You who are curious and wondering, come in.
You who are tired and lost, or not wanting to be here, come in.
You who are courageous, hopeful, and energized, come in.
Come into this community of your heart where you have been held in love and in comfort, where you have shared your joy and your spirit, where you have asked questions because you felt they needed asking, where you have found friendship and companions, where you have sometimes not agreed, and sometimes not felt comforted, and sometimes not felt heard, but always felt loved.
Bring your broken heart and your grief, share them.
Bring your curiosity and your questions, share them.
Bring your love and your compassion, share them.
Bring your hope and your energy, share them.
For here in this place, we can be together. We can gather in all the many emotions tumbling around in our heads and in our hearts. We bring them together here and lay them on the altar of community. For community means that fragile, not perfect human beings can come together in the name of peace and seek to create the world we imagine.
Peace,
Hope,
healing.
may it be so.
Thank you. Our opening hymn is "Come, Thou Fount of Every Blessing." The first verse of this hymn was written by 18th century British Unitarian minister Robert Robinson. The other verses were penned by the 20th century Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Jean Navias. Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing." The lyrics can be found at number 126 in the gray hymnals, in your orders of service, or on the screen.
Come, thou fount of every blessing, tune our hearts to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. While the home of Christ's perfection fills our hearts with joy and love, teach us ever to be faithful. May we still thy goodness prove. Come, thou fount of every vision, lift our eyes to what may come. See the lion and the young lamb dwell together in thy home. Hear the cries of hosts of silence, hear our love born like the sun. May we all serve one another, then our heaven is begun. Come, thou fount of every nation, tune our hearts to higher ways. Lift our gloom and desperation, show the promise of this day. Help us find ourselves in union, help our hands tell of our love. With thine aid, O fount of justice, earth be fair as heaven above.
In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the covenant is a set of promises that the membership of a congregation strives to honor with one another and out in the world. Though we cannot all gather together in person during this time, we strive to live these promises every day. Please say along with me the words of our parish covenant as stated in your order of service. We gather as a loving community to encourage and comfort one another. We gather as a diverse community to support each other in our search for spiritual truth. We gather as a service community to live our beliefs through action and care for our world.
Good morning. This morning I will be reading Sky Color by Peter H. Reynolds. Have you ever taken an art class before? Maybe one where the teacher sets up a display of fruit that you have to paint? One of the hardest lessons for people learning to draw and paint is to shut off the part of your brain that says, apples look just like this. Instead, to draw or paint an apple in front of you. Our story this morning is about a young artist that learns this lesson on her own. Let's listen. Sky Color by Peter H. Reynolds. Marisol was an artist. She loved to draw and paint, and she even had her very own art gallery. Not all of her art hung in a gallery. Much of it she shared with the world. She painted posters to share ideas she believed in. At school, Marisol was famous for her creative clothes, her box of art supplies, and her belief that everybody was an artist. Yes, Marisol was an artist through and through. So when her teacher told the class they were going to paint a mural for the library, Marisol could not wait to begin. The classroom buzzed with the sound of brainstorming. The students talked and sketched. Together they made a great big drawing. Then they marched to the library. I'll paint a fish. I'll paint one too. I'll paint at the ocean. Marisol shouted, I'll paint the sky. Marisol rummaged through the box of paint, but couldn't find any blue. How am I going to make the sky without any blue? The bell rang. It was time to put their brushes down for the day. As she climbed aboard the bus, Marisol kept wondering. All the way home, she stared out the window. The sun lowered closer to the horizon. Later at home, Marisol watched day turn into night. That night, Marisol settled into a deep dream. She drifted through a sky swirling with colors. The colors mixed to make too many to count. In the morning, Marisol stood waiting for the bus in the rain. The sky was not blue, and Marisol smiled. At school, Marisol raced to the library. She grabbed a dish and began adding colors. This one, that one, she swirled the brush to make an altogether new color. Marisol then began painting on the wall. A boy asked, "What color is that?" "That?" Marisol said. "That is sky color." If someone asked you what color the sky is, you'd probably be like Marisol and answer that the sky is blue. And you'd be right for much of the time, maybe not these days, but as Marisol notices late afternoon and sunset and nighttime and cloudy days all have skies that are not quite blue. They are almost every color of the rainbow. Peter Reynolds, the author of this book, writes at the end of the book that he dedicated sky color to Aldo Sorvino, who took the blue paint away from him and helped him paint and think in sky color. Have you ever noticed something similar? That maybe your eyes or your ears or maybe your tongue is noticing one thing, but your brain is telling you something different, something that isn't actually what you're seeing, hearing, or tasting? Did you have someone who helped you to see sky color? Or were you like Marisol and discovered this new way of painting and thinking all on your own? I am wondering, what would it mean if we all started helping each other to think and see in sky colors? What new colors, sounds, tastes, ideas would we all create? One thing I'm sure of is that the world would be more beautiful, unique, and colorful place if we did.
And now, as Emily leads our children to their religious exploration adventure, please join in singing Long Time Sun. The words can be found in your orders of service and on the screen. This is the time in our worship service when we share the joys and concerns that are very close to our hearts and our lives. For anyone not able to be with us here in the church building, I am receiving candles through my email that you can submit using candles@uuneedham.org. And if you could send them to me by the Friday at midnight before the service, I would appreciate it, and I will share them for you during our service. If you're participating on Zoom or on YouTube, I encourage you to type your candles into the chat to share them with the community and to be held together as you watch the service. We have 4 pre-submitted candles this morning. The first is from Andrea Grealish, who first submitted the candle last week, but it went astray, so I apologize for the delay. And her candle is one of concern, relief, and of healing. Andrea writes that she had a cardiac event while skiing in Colorado with her girls. She went in for medical testing right away, and a cardiac cath showed a tear in a coronary artery. The only treatment is lots of medication and rest. Andrea took 2 weeks off from work, and her daughter and son-in-law made sure that she rested and ate healthy heart meals. Andrea says that she's feeling well and hopes this was a wake-up call to being healthier. She plans to live a long and healthy life. We light a candle. Our second candle is one of joy and thanksgiving, and it comes from Jen Duhamel. She writes that today, April 14th, her niece is being induced, and Jen will have the honor of being her niece's labor coach. We offer our prayers with Jen's for a safe and healthy labor and delivery for her niece and her new grandniece. We light a candle. So our next candle, or the next 2, come from the staff. The first is one of joy, and it is best wishes for Reverend Katie and our youth. We have Alexis and Joe and Owen and Fallon, who've all traveled down to the U.S. Virgin Islands to offer their service rebuilding trails in the national park. And our chaperones, Byron Dorfer and Peter Panoff. We wish them an exhilarating and fun-filled week rebuilding trails. We light a candle. And our final candle is one of sorrow and of peace. As Iran escalated the conflict with Israel into a war by launching retaliatory drone and missile attacks on Israel last night. We pray for those who are injured, for their families, and for the people of both countries caught in a conflict that is not of their choosing. May an end to violence and peace prevail. And now, if you're here in the building and have a joy or concern to share, I invite you to come forward to light a candle and state your name, and if you'd like, your pronouns, and briefly describe what is on your heart.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Thal, and I light this candle, of course, for peace, but also biodiversity. But I also light the candle as a candle of concern for my mother, who is not feeling very well right now and has been under the weather for the past couple weeks, and I'm not sure what it is. She's going to be seeing the doctor pretty soon, but hopefully they'll get it under control. Thank you.
And may the peace in this sanctuary be felt too wherever you are participating from, as we remember that even though worshiping in different times and places, we are still deeply connected. And for all those candles of joys and sorrows we light that remain silent in our hearts, we'll light a final candle. Our prayer and meditation time this morning is based on hymn number 1037 in our teal hymnals, We Begin Again in Love. I will offer a spoken prayer or lament, and we will all respond by singing the refrain. And we're going to take a chance to practice it. Chris, will you please lead us in practicing the refrain? Thank you.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
One more time? I think we need another try.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
Thanks, Chris. And now that we've practiced, I invite you into our time of prayer and meditation. Please, if you're comfortable with it, place your feet flat on the floor from wherever you're joining us from, and ground yourself in this space and this time together. And breathe. Spirit of life, it is not always easy to be human. We try to be our best selves, but sometimes we fall short of these ideals and expectations, and we seek forgiveness for remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
Forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible,
forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause,
Forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for losing sight of our unity, our community, and our shared values.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For failing to see the beauty and wonder of our Mother Earth.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For failing to trust in imagination and possibility that could bring needed change to our world.
Forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
Spirit of life and of love, we lift up our frailties and our humanness, that we may be transformed by forgiveness and understanding. May compassion lead our hearts, and may curiosity guide our minds, that we may imagine into being a world free from poverty, hunger, war, and oppression.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
I invite you now to lift up in your hearts, in the silence of your own mind, your own frailties and needs for forgiveness, as we're held in several moments of silence. Amen. This congregation has been supported by the volunteered time and treasure of its members and friends since its founding in 1711. This is the time in our service when we, the modern stewards of this church, offer what we can to build and sustain the congregation and the world we envision. For the month of April, we'll be sharing our collection 50-50 with the Needham Community Farm. The Needham Community Farm is a nonprofit right here in town that educates people about sustainable growing, helps volunteers get back in touch with the earth and with one another, and supplies fresh seasonal produce to the Needham Community Council Food Pantry and Needham Housing Authority sites. To donate to today's offering, you can use one of three methods as described in detail in your orders of service. You can use our Text to Give program through the number 73256, donate through our website, uuneedham.org, or simply drop a check or cash in the offering plate as it comes by, or mail a check to First Parish. Whatever way you give, please do remember to specify whether your donation is meant for the plate collection or for your annual pledge. And if this is one of your first time visiting First Parish, we also encourage you to fill out a yellow card in your pew back to drop in the collection plate, or fill one out online, our online visitors form at uuneedham.updates.church. And many thanks to Liz Campbell for the beautiful flower arrangement given in memory of her father, Bill Goodwill. Thank you for everything you are able to give to help support and sustain the congregation and the vital work of our community partners. May the ushers please come forward. Thank you, Chris. That was beautiful. Our reading this morning is a poem called Awe, and it was written by Euro-American poet James Cruz. It's a shiver that climbs the trellis of the spine, each tingle a bright white morning glory, breaking into blossom beneath the skin. It can happen anywhere, anytime, even finding this sleeve of ice worn by a branch all morning, now fallen on a bed of snow. You can choose to pause, to pick it up, hold the cold thing in your hand, or not. Few tell us that wonder and awe are decisions we make, daily, hourly, minute by minute, in the tiny offices of the heart, tilting the head to look up at the tree, turned into a chandelier by light striking ice in just the right way. Here ends our reading. All right, everybody. This morning, we are going on a little bit of an adventure together. It's not quite a guided meditation, but I would like to invite you to close your eyes or soften your gaze so it becomes unfocused as I tell you a story. And as I tell this story, I would like you to imagine you are the person I'm speaking about. Allow your mind to fill in the gaps and imagine the space, the feelings, and the actions as if they are really happening to you. Let us begin. It's a beautiful sunny day, but you are stuck in your office, attempting to get work done. You'd rather be doing anything but work, but you dutifully prepare to get down to business. You pull out your pad of paper, and you reach for your favorite pen, but it's not where you left it. You could use a different pen, but this one makes smooth, bold lines. The ink, it flows easily, and the grip, it fits your hands so perfectly. You love this pen. Seems like your ideas flow better and more easily when you write with it. You look everywhere in your office. The more you search, the angrier you get. You think to yourself, I always keep it in the drawer of my desk. I am so tired of people taking my things. So after looking everywhere around your workspace, you leave and go off to search for whoever might have taken it. As you leave your office, you see a colleague at the end of the hall, and as you approach them, you notice they're holding something in their hand that looks, remarkably, like your favorite pen. With fists clenched, you peevishly shout at them, "Drop the pen!" Your loud, angry tone startles your colleague. Now, in your mind's eye, I'd like you to imagine what happens next without me narrating it. Okay, if you're done, I'd invite you to come back into our sanctuary and open your eyes and be with us here again. So let's talk about it. What did you imagine happened? What did you see in your mind's eye? Did the person let go of the pen when you startled them? Nothing? No? Yes? We got a range here. Okay, so if they let it go, what happened to that pen? Did it fall to the ground? Did it disappear? Did it show up in your hand magically? What did it do? It fell on the ground, right? And that's a natural assumption to make, since in the story I shouted, we shouted, you shouted, drop the pen. And let's be honest, we are standing here in Needham on the planet Earth, and it has gravity. So when you imagine someone like me holding a pen and you say drop it, we expect it to fall to the ground. Except I never said that the story is taking place in Needham. I'm guessing we all made the assumption that the story happened here on Earth. But actually, our story doesn't take place on Earth. You're in space, doing research on the International Space Station. And as described, you are done and dusted with people taking your things and them going missing. So when you yell at your colleague to drop the pen and they let it go, it floats. All right. I'm thinking this is a little baffling. Our adventure this morning isn't really about being in space. It's about letting go of what we expect. It's about thinking sky color instead of blue, as with our story in The Time for All Ages. It's about leaning into wonder, as in, I wonder what would happen if. Or, I wonder if there's a way to, as in, I wonder if there's a place where dropping a pen means it won't fall to the ground. What I'm wondering is, how is our world shaped and held in place by thinking blue? What do we prevent ourselves from seeing and thinking, let alone believing and doing, because we have fixed ideas of what is? What if the world is sky-colored, but all we let ourselves see is blue? How do we move beyond blue? How do we get from blue to sky color? So for me, I love poetry. It helps me think in sky colors because poems observe and comment on the world from angles and perspectives that most of us fail to notice. So Maya Popa, in her poem, "Wound is the Origin of Wonder," the title alone opens up worlds of colors and ideas for me. But in this poem, she can help us get towards sky color, and the poem begins with these words: "Fiction is the house of many windows," James said, as I sat at each one, peering at the world that trembled. Or was that me instead, quivering in the face of all I made by looking, unable to amend the plot or bend the hand? Fiction is the house of many windows, and I have sat at each one, peering out. Maya Popa is offering us a bit of context to the world by imagining the world as a house of fiction in which we have made the room, the windows, and the way we see the world beyond those windows. It's a fiction that we created, peering at a world that trembled, or was that me instead, quivering in the face of all I made? The world is fiction that we have made, or at least our perceptions of the world are our fiction. And I don't know about you, but I sure have spent some time in this house of fiction with many windows. And I've peered out at the sky and seen nothing but blue. And I've peered out at the belief that a pen will fall when I drop it. And I've peered out at intractable problems and have been overwhelmed by the immensity of poverty and racism and patriarchy and gender and heteronormativity and war. And I've peered out and thought my life was constrained and limited by the track I've been set upon. I have peered out and not always questioned what I've seen. Oh yes, I have spent many hours in this house. And I've failed to wonder if I am living in this house of fiction, if the world is trembling, or if I am quivering. And because I have seen the world through the window of our communal fiction, our beliefs, our convictions, our understandings, I have failed to bring my curiosity and imagination to wonder what might be. To wonder if, as in our adventure together, we're actually sitting in front of a window looking out at Dedham Street in Needham as we assumed, or are we in fact floating out in space? To wonder if there might be another possibility to what I'm seeing. In our adventure this morning, we needed this little bit of additional information, this bit of context to help us see beyond the blue. It helps when I said we were in outer space. It helped to open up space for us to wonder if there is a place or are there conditions in which that dropped item doesn't fall. Because space is a place where different sets of rules apply, where a dropped pen floats. Popa reminds us that our world is something that we human beings have created, that fiction is a house of many windows. And while we sit trembling, looking out at the many windows, at what we have made, we never stopped to ask, are we trembling? Or is the house on frail foundations, quivering and shaking under the weight of our collective fiction? What is sky color? It's a shiver that climbs the trellis of the spine, each tingle a bright white morning glory, breaking into blossom beneath the skin. It can happen anywhere, anytime, even finding this sleeve of ice worn by a branch all morning that's now fallen on a bed of snow. You can choose to pause, pick it up, hold the cold thing in your hand, or not. Few tell us that wonder and awe are decisions we make, hourly, daily, minute by minute, in the tiny offices of the heart, tilting our head to look up at every tree turned into a chandelier by light striking ice in just the right way. I am so grateful to James Cruz for helping us think sky-colored, for giving us the perspective that wonder is a choice. It begins in the tiny offices of the heart. It whispers new possibilities that we can choose to bring into the world. I am grateful because now that I know that wonder is a choice I can make, that I can choose to pause, to bring my curiosity to the world, to become unbound by conventional wisdom, to encourage wonder to blossom and unfurl into many possibilities of white morning glories, to peer out the windows at chandeliers made of ice, at skies so full of color we can hardly name them all, at vistas so beautiful that they are staggering. We are bound only by our imagination. We can imagine a new world where wonder can become awe, and thinking in sky color encourages us to create something beautiful for ourselves, for one another, and for the world. May it be so. Here I was thinking I was done speaking, but no. Our final hymn is When the Spirit Says Do, which was one of the songs used during the civil rights era at virtually every demonstration, mass meeting of activists and march in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Please rise in body and spirit and join in singing When the Spirit Says Do. Lyrics are at 1024 in the teal hymnal, on the screen, or in your orders of service. I like that one. So as we come to the end of our service, as usual, I have a few announcements. Social hour, we would love to see you all there, whether you're with us in the building or online. Please join that Zoom room for social hour. Grief and loss support group is today at 12:30, and we are still encouraging support for our senior youth service trip. We've got tiered levels of sponsorship. $50, you get a daily email update. For $100, you get the email update and access to their Spotify playlist. I know. For $250, you get the Spotify playlist, the email, and an original piece of art made by a trip participant. And the grand level, $500, you get not only the artwork, the Spotify, the daily email, you get invited to a dinner with our youth to hear from them directly about the trip. We'll be choosing a day in May for those who sign up for that level of sponsorship. Monday, if you want to do that, you can find the text to give option for our youth trip in your orders of service. Monday, there's the UU World discussion with Charles Thomas of our DEI committee, and he'll be discussing welcoming theologies, important ologies, and no theologies. The Israel-Gaza Study Group, formerly known as the Gaza Book group is reading the shortest history of Israel and Palestine for their first meeting on May 4th. Grab a copy and start reading, please. And we have our regular weekly events of Writing Escapes, Vespers, meditation on Thursdays, and Creative Escapes on Friday. We always extinguish our chalice with the words promising to carry its flame in our hearts until we are together again, no matter how long it is until we are all together again. Please join me from home or here in the building in saying these words written by UU Minister Reverend Elizabeth Sully Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Oh, I've got our benediction.
So sorry.
But you know, we can just move to the music. It's probably better than any benediction. Our benediction this morning, I offer you these words. Choose wonder. Let go of blue. See chandeliers in sun-struck ice. Drop the pen. Let go of your expectations. Imagine, dream, think in sky color. Choose wonder in the tiny offices of your heart, then bring them out into the world to blossom. May it be so.